Nice.
135.
135. Check. If anybody if they don't recognize the background, it's because this guy travels basically the world, not the country, the world. And today it's a New York state of mind. And John, tell them just a little bit about what you've done over the last 24 hours, like shows, dinners, keynotes.
Yeah, let's see, Pete. So yesterday went down to the New York Stock Exchange and did Nicole Pelladides TD Ameritrade.
That was pretty good
streaming show, 360 it's called. That was great. She's quite the host and a very nice lady. Mm-hmm. Then I jumped in the car and went up to, then I did this show with you yesterday from the New York Stock Exchange. And then I went up to do Liz Clayman's show with Mark Lopresti. First time the two of us were ever on a show together at the same time, that is. And then just to round things out, Pete, I went to Crypto Mondays over at a place in the Flatiron District, and they set a record for the crowd for Crypto Mondays. So to Lou Kerner and Abby and Julie Lamb and everybody that set that up, thank you. That was great. And now here I am again with Pete, about to jump in the car and go over with Charles Payne in another hour. So
what a pain. Charles is the best. That'll be fun, John. That'll be great. That's a lot. All right, let's jump into the macro, big dog.
Let's jump into macro minute, Pete. It is a pretty interesting day because ahead of the CPI print tomorrow, we are seeing the Dow up 150, the NASDAQ down 35. I suspect, Pete, that the CPI might not be down as much as they think. Now, we all kind of hope consumer prices are down, but I sure haven't felt it anywhere. They say they're predicting an 8-point drop to 5.2% from 6%. I hope they're right.
Yeah. I'm just going to hit real quick this one, John. Berkshire Hathaway and let's just say who it really is, Warren Buffett. How about what's been going on in energy and how, once again, the Oracle has been all over it and has been absolutely incredible. How about Chevron? It's the second largest position for Berkshire. And oh, by the way, all he continues to do is buy more and more Occidental. He's up to like 23.5% share, John. I mean, it's amazing. The guy has been gold, and I think his average price in Oxy at this point in time is a little bit below. It's right around 52 or 53, something like that. I think the Oracle's doing pretty well in the macro sense.
I bet he is, Pete. Yeah. All right, let's get into the CME brings you fantastic futures.
We love it.
Fantastic future.
It was on a pause.
Sounds more like a ghost. We're gonna have to put the volume up on that one, I think, Jared.
All right.
Fantastic futures. Bitcoin breaks resistance at 28.6. This is a pretty critical point, Pete, because it broke above that in a big way. Went all the way over 30,000, and right now it's 30,125. So for those who trade the CME futures and futures options on Bitcoin, it's a good day if you're long.
Yep, great day, and I'm very, very lucky today. We'll talk about that later on, but there was parts of the crypto space, crypto miners, that have been kicking ass and taking names today, which is phenomenal because the buyers were there yesterday. Bang.
Yep.
I will say this, John, when I'm looking at the fantastic futures, hold on, wait for it.
Fantastic future.
All I can do, I'm going to give you three things, John: silver, gold, and how about black gold, otherwise known as oil, crude. Let me tell you, they're all up. They're all up substantially, but specifically even today, you're talking about big moves. And what's the best sector right now today? You guessed it. It's energy. That's your fantastic futures.
Well, I think that we're both long a lot of both energy, Pete, and all those metals right now.
Mhm.
So let's dive into WW, which used to be Weight Watchers,
Still
and
is.
then all of a sudden it became, I guess, more of a weight management
Yeah.
company.
Oh, God.
And so it has bounced from $3.25 not very long ago, Pete. It's up 47% today. Big move out of Weight Watchers, or whatever WW stands for these days. And Goldman Sachs raised them to a buy from neutral.
Yeah. John, they're talking about pharmaceutical based clinical subscriptions. That's a lot of words to throw in together, but that's what they're talking about now. So it's no longer about trying to make sure that you're doing everything in this great, healthy, wonderful way, trying to teach you how to do things. All you got to do is pop a pill, it turns out. Well, that's shocking. But this is a company, John, when you look at the balance sheet, you look at the shorts, it's understandable how a stock like this can make the move that it is today, because this is a classic short squeeze thing going on right now. I do think what they're doing is the right thing right now for the company. But John, when you look at the debt, you look at the short interest, I think it's all there for all the right reasons, like it oftentimes is for many of these stocks. Uh, I don't know what could possibly go wrong with guys popping pills or whatever they're doing to be able to lose weight. Seems to me like it might not be the greatest thing in the world.
Yeah, well, they're all doing it in California, Pete. So if California's doing it, the rest of the country will be doing it soon.
Yep.
Obviously, all the Real Housewives of whatever show we're talking about are all popping them.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're going to keep an eye on that. I'm with you though.
Yeah.
Cut back on what you eat, increase exercise, and you can get there without some artificial means. But some people will definitely stay on this track until they find out that maybe it's not so healthy. All right. CarMax, Pete, 4% rally, 5% rally. Now it's up 11%. Earnings and guidance, great. Better than expected quarterly results. Used car seller reported fourth quarter earnings, 44 cents. Wall Street was looking for 20. Anytime you double up on a number, as long as it's to the upside, you're talking about a good day.
This is a free cash flow monster, John. They do have a lot of debt. That's just part of the business, I think, as well. But when they did deliver their earnings, to your point, they crushed it. I mean, for what they were looking for. Now, if you go out a year or back a year, it wasn't so great. But they were looking for 20 cents. They get 44. They did miss on sales by a pretty decent number, but I think people were able to look past that. The comp sales actually were still bad, but not as bad as expected. I think they were looking for them to be down 27%. I think they reported they were down 22%. So the numbers themselves actually gave them a little bit of a boost, and it doesn't hurt in this one either, John. Been saying this, it's kind of a theme, but when you've got a pretty high short interest, we're talking double digits, that squeeze starts to come into play. And to your point, it's not only 4%, it's not 5%, it's 10%, 11% move to the upside. It's exactly what we're seeing. It's a classic squeeze as well.
Yeah, I think the squeeze is a big part of it, Pete, because there were certainly a lot of bets lined up against CarMax putting up a good number. And since you led off with that, let's talk about Coinbase, because this one has a 24% short interest. And top of the show, we talked about, look at those fantastic futures and Bitcoin running. Well, Coinbase moves right along with Bitcoin to the upside or downside. And the fact that you've got shorts piled in there as well is why this one's up as strong as it is, Pete.
Yep, they do have the shorts, John. And when you look at where the stock is relative to the 52-week, I mean, on the low side, 31, on the high side, 162. Last I looked, the stock was just north of 70. So it's still on the lower end of the 52-week range that it's been in. To your point, a lot of short interest there. Hey, by the way, they were buying Marathon yesterday. They were buying Riot yesterday. Those calls were very inexpensive. I'm just letting you know that's why you are a part of Market Rebellion when you sign up, because those were all over our screens yesterday. Huge call buying. And oh, by the way, John, they're paying like 20 cents, 25 cents for some of these options that more than tripled today. So That's why we love the options world. You can hear people talk about stocks all the time and say, I made about 8% last year. It's like, man, I don't wake up for 8%. I wake up to get doubles and triples, and those are the kinds of things. And you're going to miss a lot, but it sure does make up for it when you're looking at gains like we are seeing today in some of these names.
Yeah, the miners, as well as anybody exposed to Bitcoin, are seeing a nice rise today. And I don't know that that's done, Pete. My short-term target's 35,000 now that we've broken through here. We'll have to see if we can get there, or if we do see what AJ talks about a lot, our own AJ Monty, where once you break through resistance, usually you see some sort of a pullback, and that's the buy. We'll see whether or not we get that pullback. And this is without the rails, Pete, without the on rails at Silvergate and all the banks that basically have been part of Operation Chokehold by the government to basically shut them down. They haven't been able to choke it off, but they've sure tried. I guess a lot of us just are rooting for Bitcoin to win rather than the Fed.
Yeah.
All right. What about Moderna, Pete? MRNA. It's obviously gets its name from mRNA technology. And it was $217 a year ago. It's been hit hard as it falls because of a mixed update on just a regular flu vaccine, Pete. And they basically couldn't prove out what they've got, whether or not it really helps out with preventing the flu or making the flu less damaging, because even as we said years ago, 3 years ago now, it seems that about 40,000 people a year die of just the regular flu. So a lot of those people need to get vaccinated for the flu, not for COVID. And this vaccine was supposed to be a big moneymaker for them, and instead it's not doing that.
No, it's not. And that is a problem. That's why the stock is down. You talked about where the stock has been on the higher end of the last 52 weeks, where it is now significantly off of that higher end level. The last thing I'd say about this, though, John, is it does have an ungodly balance sheet. When you look at Moderna, you look at this balance sheet, you're just going, wow, look at the cash position. Look at the free cash flow that they've got. That's all a positive. Here, I'm going to throw one negative in there, John, and it's about the entire industry in pharmaceuticals. Did you realize that only 13% of any clinical study that's in phase 1, and we talk about this here all the time, only 13% of them ever get to the finish line? So, it's why you and I are very cautious, and we say, hey, man, that's phase 1, or hey, that's only phase 2. You still got to get a little further down the line. I mean, there are a lot of different drugs out there. Everybody's trying to solve some problem, which is fantastic. But just understand, the chips are kind of stacked against a lot of these guys that 13% actually get from the beginning to the end. And that's exactly what the numbers are. So you wonder, is Moderna starting to struggle a little bit with what's going on with this flu vaccine? There's a lot of different things that they've missed on already there, John, and they just don't have the numbers right now to execute on this one. Those things do cost money. There's a lot of money invested. When they start, it's amazing the amount of money that it costs just to get to phase 1, 2, 3, and then obviously over the finish line.
Yeah. Well, I'll point out, folks, that it traded down to 149, Moderna did this morning, and it's 155 now. So Pete is exactly right. People are looking at the strength of that, of the additional offerings they've got, as well as the balance sheet, and saying, one miss like this isn't the end of the world for a company as big as this one. They've got a lot more in the tank. So those who were brave enough to buy it this morning, again, we salute you. I think you made a nice purchase.
Yeah.
All right, Pete, what do you got as far as some of the sports stuff today?
Well, last week, I think we were talking about some of the free agents that had not signed yet in the NFL, and we were a little bit surprised by some of them. Big names. Odell Beckham is one of them. On Odell's side, I would say this, though, is it because of his personality of why he hasn't signed yet? I'd say that would be one check mark. I'll give you a few others in a second. But, John, they being the Baltimore Ravens, gave him $15 million. They gave him 13.8 in a signing bonus and then 1.2 for a salary. So essentially he's totally locked in, 15 million guaranteed. He's got some stuff in there that could push it all the way up to 18 million bucks. Now, my question to you would be this: is he worth it? And I'll just give you some numbers to see what you think, John. If you were a general manager of a team, would you have gone after Odell Beckham? So how about this? He came in the NFL in 2014 through 2018. He was with the New York Giants. 4 of those first 5 years, he went over 1,000 yards. His best year was his second year. We're going back to 2015, where he had 1,400 yards, John, and he had 13 touchdowns. Pretty damn good year, right? I mean, that's a great year for a receiver. He's never been close to that since. He's had 1 year where he went 1,000 yards with Cleveland, 2019. Since then, 20, 21, he didn't play in 22. In 20 and 21, totaled up 800 yards total. So call it 400 yards a season, 5 touchdowns. Is this guy really worth $15 million if that's the production that you can get out of this guy? And the fact that he was hurt last year? I mean, you kind of look at this whole thing, John, you really kind of shake your head. Is this just to kind of try to get Lamar to maybe think about coming back to Baltimore? Is that really going to be enough? Because I don't know. His numbers do not reflect a guy who deserves anything close to what they paid him.
Well, 3 years ago, you'd be right. But these days, Pete, you pay 15 million for a bag of balls in the NFL. I mean, 15 mil ain't what it used to be, folks. Not when it comes to, talented wide receivers. I agree with Pete's assessment, though. Odell Beckham, fabulous hands, fabulous career. Numbers are amazing. Not the yards, but the amount of catches that make highlight reels every year. Those are amazing. So is he the difference maker that gets Lamar and the Ravens to the Super Bowl? I don't think so, Pete. Is he that commitment that you talked about by the Ravens to Lamar Jackson to show that they really care? I don't think so. But Lamar certainly liked the idea. He reached out to him right away. So that's a positive. But yeah, you need a lot more than this to get Lamar to stick around, because neither one of these two guys is likely to be there in a couple years.
John, we said we'd revisit this, and we are today. We're going to just do a really quick back and forth. You and I are the general managers of the first 10 teams in the NFL draft. You have 5, I have 5. I'm going to kick it off. By the way, that mock draft is the stupidest looking thing I have ever seen in my life. Whoever put up that mock draft is an idiot, because those guys are not the order that this should go in. And here's why. I'm going to take it off with the very first pick, John, the Carolina Panthers. You're going to go with C.J. Stroud, and you're going to go with him because he's consistent. He's not small. He's big. He's athletic as hell, and the guy can throw the ball all over the place without throwing interceptions. Who do you got with the second pick, which is Houston, not Tennessee like this mock draft says?
Yeah, I would say, Pete, we're going to see, you said of what the Carolina Panthers are going to do, and they're certainly going to do that. I think we're going to see an edge rush guy taken with the number 2 pick.
Wow.
I still think that, Pete, because I think there's 2 of them that are Anderson and the other guy that are just so good. Somebody's going to surprise and take that with the second pick, and it might be traded.
Right. Well, that would be interesting, John, because they still don't have a quarterback though there at Houston. Then that's the big problem. But that would be interesting
for them.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it is amazing how good these edge rushers are and how much meaningful, how big they are. As far as, just take a look at the dollars that have gone out this year in the offseason. You don't have to look too long to find out that those guys are worth a hell of a lot of money. Well, I'm going to stick with that whole kind of a strategy, John. Arizona, I don't know if they've really got the right quarterback, but I don't think they're going to take another dwarf at quarterback with Bryce Young to join up with what they've already got. So I'm going to say Arizona's going to have Tyree Wilson from Texas Tech, another edge rusher. So we got 2 in the first 3 picks.
Now, Pete, let me ask you this one. I'm not expecting this guy to jump up into those numbers. But I am going to say that there is a kid the wide receiver over at Ohio State that just put up some incredible numbers. And he did it, of course, because he's got that big guy pitching him the ball. I get that. But his numbers as far as speed through that cone drill and things like that, they really impressed. And I think a lot of people are going to be watching him. His name's Jackson Smith Nagibe or something like that.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I'm with you. Yeah.
But he was basically a quarter second faster than anyone in these cones. And that means that he's a shake and bake guy to me. So somebody in a surprise position, I'm not saying this position, but in a surprise position, somebody's going to take this guy, Pete, rather than him slipping into the later third and fourth rounds. I think he's a first round pick.
So he might, we'll just say he's going to go to the Colts then.
Okay.
And if we go to the next one, we'll look at Seattle. And looking at Seattle, John, I think that it just fits perfectly for them with Jalen Carter. Why not? I mean, Pete Carroll's not afraid to go out there and get a guy who's a monster, who's an unbelievable player. Yes, he had the offseason issues. That was a terrible thing. But I think it's something that Pete Carroll's not afraid of. It wasn't something that was as awful. It just was a really bad choice. But anyway, I think Jalen Carter goes to Seattle with that pick. Who does Detroit take, John?
Well, that was my pick. So you took him off the board for me because I would have taken him for Detroit. As it is right now, let's see. Since you did take him, you got to have somebody out here for Goff to, pitch the ball to. So, I'm not sure, Pete. It's got to be one of the wide receivers then.
Sure. Yep. And it's a deep class. So it could be another guy from Ohio State even. I mean, that's how deep Ohio State was this past year. I'm looking at the Raiders, John. They're pretty interesting, I think. And what they can do and how they would want to do things in this offseason. Do they go for a quarterback themselves? Maybe. And I think if anybody's going to do it early, it would be the Raiders going for Anthony Richardson. I think they fall in love with the kid. I'm not saying it's the right pick, but when you really look at who the Raiders are, how they go through their things, they like a big, strong, fast, athletic guy, even if he throws interceptions. They've already proven to do that in the past. I think they draft Anthony Richardson from Florida, the quarterback, John. So we only got a couple left. We got Atlanta. Who does Atlanta go with?
Gosh, well, if you're Atlanta and you obviously need edge rusher, quarterback, wide receiver, I mean, they need a bunch, Pete. But since you're saying they're going to take Richardson with the Raiders, then I'm going to say these guys. I'm going to step out and say Paris from Ohio State for the offensive lineman. I'm going to say him for the Falcons because they can maneuver around and perhaps trade down or up to get a different quarterback. But I think they otherwise, Pete, would have taken Richardson.
Yep. Nope. I agree with you. And I think that's not a bad selection, by the way, because I think that would have fit. Well, what does now fit for the Chicago Bears, your old team, they probably were in line if he was there to take Paris. But this is not such a bad move because now they get a kid who grew up right there just north of them, and they're going to get Peter Skoronski from Northwestern, the offensive lineman. You've talked about him in the past. We both know the kid is a complete stud, 6'4", 320. He looks 220 because he's got that great physical body that's not a big tub of goo. He's a big, strong, well-built guy. I think he fits in really well. They need protection. They got to protect their daggone quarterback. They didn't have it last year. They need it this year. I think they go with him.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, Pete. And he can play guard, tackle. They probably could even work him in at center. I think he plays guard. I know, though, for some reason, Pete, teams are really in favor of having guards that are 6'5" and 6'6". He's 6'4", like you say. Pro measured 6'4", which means he's 6'5", because they push that ruler down pretty hard on these kids' heads. So I think overall, though, you're right. They get Skoronski, and look for them to have one of the better drafts because of the generosity of Mr. Tepper.
Yeah, he really did load them up. Last pick, you get it. Philadelphia. Who are they going to take, John? What do they need actually?
Well, Philly's pretty damn strong everywhere. Let's see. I know that they've got a pick that they got from the Saints, right, Pete?
Mm-hmm.
So do you go with the edge guy if you're Philly? Or do you try to, maybe trade down and take a DB or a defensive lineman? If I'm going to say they're going to trade down, Pete, because I think with the spot they've got, if they can get Tennessee or somebody else to step up for the right number, they're going to trade down. So I say they take nobody.
I think they might stay there, John, and the reason why is we passed over it so far, and I don't know that everybody else would be passing over it, but sitting at 10, Christian Gonzalez from Oregon, a cornerback. He's big, he's lean. They need a corner. They actually just lost a corner in free agency, so I think that actually could be something that might fulfill what they really do need, and I think that they'd make that move. Philadelphia did not sit there sit there thinking about, hey, man, the Super Bowl and all these great things and everything that they had last season. They're still building. They lost a lot of coordinators, some coaches, but they are still building a team, and I'm impressed with what they've done. They've lost a few guys though in free agency.
Well, thank you for watching, folks. I'm going to head over to Fox and join Charles Payne in about 45 minutes. So please join us there and join Pete and I tomorrow, Wednesday, for another Rebels Edge, 1 p.m. Eastern Time.